welcome back to the EduTalk series where we call educationalists elite group leaders to inspire parents and teachers with their inspiring stories and experiences. Today we have Meera Mathur with us, who has been working in this field for over 25 years. She looks forward to combining quality education with essential qualities like head, hand, and heart. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today. Thank you so much for being a part of EduTalk. We are honored to have you here.
It's my pleasure, Sanjana. I'm so glad to make your acquaintance.
So, ma'am, as we know that you're a principal, so, ma'am, I am pretty sure it wasn't an easy journey. You came to it after a lot of steps. It wasn't a bed full of roses and petals. So, ma'am, how has your journey been till now?
I don't think anything is a bed of roses. I think we all need to work on what we're doing. So, the journey, very, very eventful, highs and lows like with everybody else. So, as a child, I had a very nomadic childhood. My father was in a transferable job, so we used to move from place to place. So, initially, that used to put me out because I was very shy. But over the years, I developed an understanding of, different people, their cultural backgrounds, even the dialects of Hindi that is spoken in various parts of India. And of course, gained some languages also, depending on whichever state I was. So I think at the end of it, though painfully shy at the beginning, I found that I developed more than a local outlook. It's kind of broadened my horizons. And then, school life also, it tends to draw you out of yourself. So sports, theater, public speaking, writing, then college life, all these things were very much a part of my journey. And then as you move, you come to know what you're good at and you try to hone your skills there. So yes, over a few decades, I'm finally where I ought to be.
That's great, ma'am. So, ma'am, as you just said that you have been traveling a lot as a child because your dad had a transportive job. So, ma'am, how was it? Obviously it was difficult, but then what are the perks of it? I'm sure there are perks and disadvantages.
Actually, it didn't end there because I married an Air Force officer. And so even after marriage, I've been traveling a lot. So the perks are, you develop a love for your country. You become one with nature. There are always historical sites in India. We have such an ancient history. What a lovely, rich culture. Lots of traveling. So you tend to come out of yourself. You're not introvertish anymore, but more outgoing. I think that has been a very big perk.
So, ma'am, was it always your plan, to be a teacher? From, when you were young, you always wanted to be a teacher?
You should actually ask my mother that, because I remember every birthday I got a number of dolls from whoever. So there were a lot of dolls at home. And as a 5-year-old, I'd beg her to dress me up in her sari. And my father had bought me a kind of a tripod blackboard, and there was a tiny duster and chalks and all. I used to love to line up my dolls and kind of teach them the rudiments. So I never realized actually that one day I would be a teacher. But I suppose you tend to model yourself on the people you admire. And maybe it's because I admired my teachers that I brought it back home.
That's nice, ma'am. That's nice. So, ma'am, like you just mentioned that you have been a shy kid at first. So it was difficult for you. So, ma'am, even today there are many kids who are shy and everything. Because because of the society and everything, they just get judged. They can't come out of their shell. So, is there anything that parents and teachers can do to help them out?
I think the first thing parents and teachers need to realize is that we are not gods. a particular individual is built a particular way. Does that mean that my shyness has gone away? No, it hasn't. It's just that one learns to, move ahead, and sometimes you need to mask it also. You're still required to communicate with others. Maybe it's not as easy for me even now to open up about myself as a person, but life teaches you how to collaborate with others, how to work as a team, how to communicate. I think we should not try to play God. If a child is shy, if a child is introvertish, that is the mental makeup. You can't change it. But you can only aid the child not to be a closed human being, but someone who filters in information, who observes, who remains essentially what he or she is, but is allowed to blossom out of that cocoon that the child is in. I never try to change a child. Never.
Absolutely.
Always, a very humble feeling that you're not here to change. You're here to aid. A parent is also there to aid, and so is a teacher. I'm very fond of gardening, so I'll take an analogy from there. There's a potted plant. So a gardener, what can the gardener do? The gardener can soil it, manure it, water it, give it the right amount of sun or shade. Some plants blossom more in shade, some want the sun, they're sun hungry. So I think a parent or a teacher is also like that. You've got to customize and personalize to the child's needs. And there is no robotic creation that this is the way a child has got to be, and I've got to dish out clones generation after generation, batch after batch. Where would the individuality be? Can a Michelangelo be a Picasso, or can a Leonardo da Vinci be an Einstein? Or are they any lesser for being what they are? Each and every one needs guidance.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think that, ma'am, the Indian society is built in such a way that people put a lot of expectations and barriers on a very small child. Like people expect them to be, even parents expect them to be a certain way. Like if a child is not a topper, according to the Indian society, people think that means there is nothing, no future for the child. You either are a topper or you are nothing. So, what is your viewpoint on that?
I beg to differ over here. It's nothing to do with Indian society. I think parents all over the world, parents are very anxious parents. Expectations from self are less. Expectations from their child are just too many. So it is these expectations and the unrealism of some of them that cause the dissonance. Now you see, if Galileo actually, if we see that gravity was discovered, and gravity was discovered because the parent gave the child that much of free time to sit under an apple tree to look whether it is going up or down. I think that's also important, that kind of space that you give to someone to blossom into their potential. So parents will be parents. Is it that a king's son was not trained to be a king one day? Was he destined to be a prince all the time? Was he not given training in administration, horse riding, sword fighting, what have you? So everyone has been trained to come up to the expectations of the previous generation by way of this. It's only unrealistic expectations that cause all this unhappiness. I wouldn't like to bracket Indian parents like that. At the same time, like I said, marks don't always make a person. And there are many toppers who go on to become engineers and doctors, but they remain very mediocre achievers throughout their lives. Yet today's world is also honoring people like Malala, who speaks up for the education of others, or Greta Thunberg, who speaks up about her right to a particular environment and climate. So I do think that mindsets are changing, and also it's not like when I was a child where there were three, four basic careers to choose from. Now there is a plethora of opportunities and lots of things to do. I think that education has begun, and I also believe that as a school head, I can at least start with my own children and get my parents on board with me for them to realize this. We have a very robust career counseling program at DPSG International. So my school doesn't just tell them about careers, but also about portfolio building, about building their learner profile, and helping them to find out what are their latent talents. So I do believe there's hope, and we are coming out of this old, outdated mindsets.
Just like you mentioned, ma'am, that right now we have a lot of options. Like earlier, the options were much less for a career. But ma'am, don't you think that people have an expectation, like, everyone thinks if a child is studying maybe science or bioscience, if he is a doctor, like everyone has an expectation that either their child will be a doctor or an engineer or something. No one says that my child, mostly no one says that my child is going to be a musician or actor.
You're right. I remember watching an interview of Sanjeev Kapoor once where he brought this up when he fell in love and wanted to marry someone, and that girl's father asked her, "Will you marry a chef?" And that was the kind of mindset. But today, people like Sanjeev Kapoor have been able to open a vista for many others, and now maybe a degree in hotel management or being a chef in a world-class hotel or having your own chain of hotels is not looked down upon. I think dignity of labor has begun, and now what's important is my child should be happy with what my child is doing, and I should provide my child all the opportunities to be what he or she wants to be.
Absolutely. So ma'am, like in this pandemic, like obviously there has been a lot of negative effects, but I have been talking to a lot of principals, so they have been everyone has been mentioning this point that there are a lot of bad effects, but there are two good effects. That is, firstly, they get to spend their time with their families and everything, which did not have happened earlier because they were so busy with their work. And secondly, that the educational sector has grown a lot, like in technologically. It has become very technologically savvy and everything. So what is your viewpoint on that?
Are you asking whether the principals are getting more time to spend with family?
Not only principals, ma'am, even teachers, like, because you are a family, like school has become a family because you spend more time there normally. But due to the pandemic, the schools are closed.
Got it. I don't know which principal could have said this, because let me tell you, last 1.5 years have been in fact busier than I've ever been. So what happened was that 12th of March last year, we welcomed the children, had the Satraram assembly, and all was hunky-dory, and we were looking forward for new year. And the next day things changed and we had to go into lockdown. Now at that time, the choice for us was, so what do? We contact the children on WhatsApp and give them assignments to do and things like that. But that was not what we wanted. So we had already begun on working on blended learning, which is using a lot of technology in your classrooms. We'd already begun that 2 years prior to the lockdown. So now the option for us was that earlier it was like used within the classroom. Now we had to go online totally. So that option was explored within these 2 days. We shifted to Microsoft Teams and we began our classes just as if, like you and I are sitting in the same room. Yeah. So though you are very far away, I can hear you so well. I can see you so well. If you were to be my teacher for this session and you would want to share a video or a PowerPoint, or you would want to give me a collaborative task, then I could break out into a room with 4 or 5 of my team, do a project and come back, or prepare a PPT and come back. My notebook could be checked online. My test could be done online. So all these things began. Let me tell you, for a 1 hour class, and no class is 1 hour long, but for a 1 hour class, you've got to prepare minimum 2 hours. Because, Sanjana, we are a bit far away. That eye contact is not there, though I can read your face. Yet, I've got to keep you engaged. And if I'm not interesting, you will get very, very bored. And the modern child gets bored very easily. Attention spans are reducing. So, we were working very hard and much late into the night. Then last year, my school and our chain of schools, we didn't take any vacation. We were all preparing for the 12-day training, and for that 12-day training we had to work very hard. I was a resource person, my fellows were a resource person, and we got outsiders in too. So when the lockdown happened in such a way that we could not even come to school, because you see the admin office was always open, but when it happened that it was 100% lockdown and you couldn't even enter the school gates.
So, ma'am, what is your role as a principal? Like, what is your daily activities? What is the role of a principal? How does your daily day goes by like a principal?
You know, a school principal is the academic head as well as the administrative head. So I think there are many hats to wear, lots and lots of things to do. When it comes to academics, you've got to develop the curriculum, you've got to invest in teacher training, and by invest I mean time and planning. Then teaching methodology needs to be updated, it's got to be the best. Along with that, because the student is the center of everything, you've got to monitor the students' achievements, and the stakeholder of the parent cannot be forgotten. So you've got to encourage a lot of parental involvement. As far as the administrative responsibilities go, it's everything, whether it's financial management, campus upkeep, policies, procedures, budget, hiring staff, observing, evaluating, seeing to the facilities. But like I said, the child is at the center. So everything involved in the child's safety, security, growth, development, that is what I have to do.
So, ma'am, like from what I can understand, you have a pretty hectic day, if I could say so. So, ma'am, what keeps you motivated? Like, in the morning when some days if you want to go off or something. So, what keeps you motivated?
That's a good question. Why particularly? Because this is something that I emphasize on in my career counseling program also. You've got to enjoy what you do. Otherwise, it becomes a task. If you start thinking that you're doing a task and it's some work and this is from where you get your earnings, then it becomes boring. And then you're only looking forward to your 11 o'clock tea and 2 o'clock lunch. So I don't ever want to go into that kind of mindset. I tell the children also, enjoy what you do. So I've always loved being around children.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a hobby that has turned into a profession. So you've also got to challenge yourself, If you let yourself stagnate, then further boredom comes in. So always opportunities for learning should be taken. And you must ensure that not only are you in a positive work environment, but that you're creating such an environment for everyone else. You've got to set goals and take your team along. And taking a team along is tough because, it's easier to do the work yourself than to get people to do it, particularly if people are looking at the clock and, waiting for the day to get over. So, motivating myself is not needed. I need to motivate others. So, therefore, we've got to set goals together. And I think achievement should also be recognized. All of us are so quick to point out mistakes and errors, but an appreciation, a sharing of that particular success and attributing it to others also. Something has happened beautifully. It went better than you had planned. The execution was wonderful. then tell people, the ones who have made it possible, and provide oneself as well as others opportunities to learn, to grow, to contribute. So, like I was telling you when you asked me about technology, I said how we had to really train ourselves and get back onto totally online mode of teaching within 3 days. And like I told you, the teachers learned a lot about how to share resources, how to play a video, how to create a PPT, and the children also got involved in all this. So, in our teacher training, we not only train them, but we ask them, what would you like to do? Last year, we developed a new curriculum. We call it 2020, that is Curriculum Development 2020. We didn't let the year go waste. All of us researched, we built up learner profiles, we talked about student training, we talked about how assessments could be done, how they could be proctored such that academic honesty is maintained. So we came out with a manual which was created in-house, and our 7-8 schools together created this almost 200-page document, and we take great pride in being the owners of it. So make your team the owner and tell them, give them this ownership and make them feel the results and how they have contributed. I think that's how things go well. And best part is the excited children, the smiles on their faces, the joyful learning that takes place.
I completely agree with your point of teamwork, ma'am. Like many people are there who think that teamwork is easier because you can divide the work and everything. But for me also, I feel like teamwork is harder because you have to coordinate the people who you're dividing the work to.
Correct. And not only that, that you've got to plan and, divide the work, or kind of, diversify. You've also got to know their strengths. So say, for example, if my technological skills are not all that good, but maybe my communication skills are better, then my team, I could take over that part, allocate the other work, delegate it to others, and together we could create. So you use the best of each one and also recognize their contribution to it. Like I said, doing the work yourself is far easier than delegating it and getting it done from the other. But just delegating is not enough. They're being involved and participative. They're feeling that it's their effort that has brought the school to wherever it is, or whichever organization to wherever it is. That's also very, very important.
So, ma'am, like we have got an idea of Meera Mathur as a principal. So, ma'am, how are you like in your personal life? What are your hobbies, or what do you like to do in your free time?
Unabashedly, I'll tell you, I'm a creative person. So, I love to read and write. I've always done that. Along with that, I'm much into cooking as well as painting. Involvement in any kind of arts. I love to even go down to India Habitat Center and watch a play or see an exhibition. I love beauty. I do a lot of gardening and I like to create a little small world which is very, very beautiful. I love being outdoors. So that's it. And I'm a people's person, totally. Very interested in my family and how they are doing, keeping in touch with all of them. You'll rarely find me in front of the television. At the most, I would love to watch a comedy movie with maybe some homemade popcorn if my family is around. But if you ask me about a single serial that is going on, I'm zero. Though I do try to read what my children read and watch the movies that they watch, so that we have a common ground.
Yeah.
And actually I love the animated movies and all that the children watch. So when we sit in the classrooms and we talk with each other, I do find out whether they've seen Moana or the latest version of Frozen or whatever, and we love to discuss all that. but I'm not a much of a serial person, you know. I don't mean serial killer, I mean those serials which keep coming week after week, and those 3 times the camera coming. I find that very annoying actually.
So, ma'am, like you have been through a lot, you have came a long way. So, is there any person who inspired you throughout?
Oh, my parents first and foremost, surely. And then in your readings also, you come across some fictional characters who
Absolutely.
really make a mark, and sometimes even real life persons.
So, ma'am, is there any fictional character who you're inspired by?
There are many actually, but as I talk about them, you will realize that inside me somewhere there is idealism. I don't want to sound very pricey, but still, what happens is that, like Somerset Maugham, Rowley Flint in his book Up at the Villa, very, very sensitive man, cares deeply. But he creates a shield, and he does not play to the galleries. People don't really understand him. And I'm not saying that misunderstood characters are something that I like, but what I like about Rowley Flint is that he's very reliable at a time when someone needs him. He's rock solid support. I think that's what I would like to be to others. Then Leon Ury, his book Exodus, has Ari Ben Cannon. Ari is supposedly modeled on Moshe Dayan, who went on to become their leader in Israel. But what I like about Ari is that he does not turn the other cheek always. He stands up to what is right, and he doesn't care about his life or his safety when he does that. In fact, he's very patriotic too. Then in Odysseus by Homer, there is the goddess Athena, and this goddess is, she's a protectress, she's the goddess of handicrafts, but most important is her practical reasoning and her being the goddess of war. So she is naturally very warrior-like as well as clever, and therefore I find that her wit and her helpful attitude of working people out of tough situations, all these things make Athena also a role model to me. So sometimes it's hard to relate to such people, who are larger than life, who are so talented, but there is some inspiration in them always. And I think what I've learned is to choose your own battles and to fight it out where you have to. I would say not go picking any issue, but to solve it and resolve it rightly. There are many other books, The Kite Runner, A Thousand Splendid Suns. There's so many things one learns from all of them.
Absolutely. Ma'am, so like something that I found common between all your inspiration was someone who likes to help others, someone you can lean on, like that type of a character. So, ma'am, like nowadays we have seen that students or children are more into the competitive field, like how they will beat each other. There is very less key, let's grow together. I am my own competition. Let's hope that we all make it. That is very less. It's more like I'll beat you, I'll go there first. So, ma'am, how should we demolish this? Because this is not the right thing or the right ethics.
All right. So, you must have heard that common story about how there's a jar of spiders and all the jars are covered. Only one jar is uncovered. And someone asks, why is it that you've left the jar of spiders uncovered? They'll all escape. And so the person who owns that jar says that, these spiders, they will pull each other down if someone else climbs. So, that's unhealthy competition. And I've seen many birds do that too. They won't eat themselves, but they'll peck on someone who's trying to. So that's to say, well, this is my territory and you are out of it. That is very, very unhealthy competition. And that is where the role of the home and the school comes in. Once competition is with oneself, you've got to be better than what you were yesterday,
Absolutely.
an hour back, 5 minutes back. In my school, what we do is called the foundational domain. And in this foundational domain, apart from developing their interest in visual and performing arts, sports, etc., we also do clubs and societies, citizenship studies. So even a 5-year-old does citizenship studies in my school, and we do a community outreach program. So our children are always there to help others. So if you have a Christmas carnival or a Diwali Mela, anything, my children would probably put up a stall of handcrafted items. And the proceeds of that would go to an orphanage or to the old age home. So recently we did a lot of work with the old age home and the orphanage. And the older children go and do this, so they are able to face the realities of life, and they come back much humbled, much more grateful, and they realize that how many have-nots are there. I think that with programs like this, when we teach children not to look inward but to look outward, very soon a mindset change will come, and they'll realize that they have a role to play in society. Again, I'll go back to Israel. I really admire that country so much. Every single citizen does compulsory military service. And that not only trains them physically, mentally, emotionally, but then it builds a love for the country, for life. So go on, you are here to do well for your life. You want to do well for yourself. But think about others, be mindful about others' needs, realize the differentiation that is there in all of us, yet the common thread of humanity that runs through us. So we do try to do this, Sanjana. And I think if all of us could try it a little in whatever field we are, you could even be a housewife, and yet in that little family of yours, you could probably bring about this change. I think
Absolutely.
we can do it.
It has to be a collective thing. Like, I don't think one person can change the entire thing. It has to be a collective thing. It should be from within everyone.
True. But then every drop does make an ocean. So I'm not going to look around whether others are going to be doing it or not.
Absolutely.
If I have decided, then that's what makes me satisfied at the end of the day. Because ultimately, I should be satisfied with what I'm doing. I should be able to look at myself in the mirror and think that, yeah, I'm doing fine. I could develop more here. I could be better here, but I'm on the right track. And that's fine. I would love it if others could do it too, but if they don't, that's no skin off my nose.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, like, what are your thoughts on the 21st century skills?
Oh, life has changed a lot. If you think, I mean, earlier it was what used to be called the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. So reading, writing, arithmetic is no longer what it is. The skills and competencies that are required in 21st century are, I think, communication, very, very important. Creativity, enhancing that, as well as critical thinking. Because you can logically analyze and come to a critical approach towards thinking, and make sure that in everyday language you are coming to the best possible solution. Collaboration is also very important as 21st century skills. But if you take away these things, I mean, communication, critical thinking, collaboration, there are also some essential qualities that one needs to have. Resilience is one of them. I think we've developed a lot of resilience the world over in the COVID times. We've adapted very well. Along with that, emotional intelligence is important. It's no more IQ but EQ. And an approach which has got problem solving at the center. Then you are no longer a small island. You are part of the globe. So cultural awareness, very, very important. I think these are the things that I would start on, definitely.
These are very important, ma'am. Like, right now these are being introduced, but even when I was in school, these things were not there. It was always like mug up and have the top grades, that's it. But I feel like to be successful, it should be a blend of education. Obviously, it should be a blend of education as well as practical skills.
Absolutely. Now, when I say about critical thinking, like suppose there is a railway crossing and it is manned by a human being right now. So he gets a phone call, he gets to know a train is coming, he puts the barrier down, then he puts the barrier up. These are very replaceable professions. A machine can take over all this. But the things that I mentioned, no machine can take away from you. These are things that only a human being can do. So you've got to become better at it.
Absolutely, ma'am, absolutely. So, ma'am, like parents and teachers, because 21st century skills are very new to everyone. So, parents and teachers are often confused that how to, instigate them these things in the children. So, do you have any do's and don'ts how parents and teacher can help cultivate these things in children?
Actually, there are handbooks for everything. There's a handbook even for changing a bulb, but there's no handbook for parenting. Parenting is something that cannot be written anywhere. But yes, there are a few things that they can do. I think that planning along with the child and setting goals along with the child are very, very important. So suppose the parent sets the expectations and the expectations are set, and then the parent calls upon the child to create the goals, then it's better. But if the parent says, look, your goal is only to be an engineer, that goal is not going to be worked upon because it is not the child's goal. It is the parent's goal. So the families must give the ownership of the goal setting to the child, and their role should be to guide, to motivate, to keep checking on how the engagement is going, and they need to be models themselves. If they say reduce screen time to the child, then I think they should reduce screen time themselves. If they are going to be devoted to the various social media platforms, they cannot expect the child to put away the mobile and read from the books. So usage of technology is very important, that they should, set time for it. And I think parents should also give one priority. Doctor, engineer to sab theek hai, but languages should be given a priority. And global languages should be given a part. If parents become partners along with the school, along with the child, then all the programs would be successful. And remember, when I talked about gardening, that's what both of us have to be. The school as well as the family have to be nurturing gardeners who tell the child, look, here you go, but I'm watching your back. I'm there to fall back upon if I'm needed, but try to find your own way. I think that's an essential.
Absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, also the thing is, like, there should, as you said, there should be a healthy communication between a parent and a child, which is very much missing in a lot of families. Like, parents put a certain set of boundaries and certain set of expectations, and they don't even hear the other part of it, which
Very
is
true.
not the right thing.
No, you kind of hear, but you don't listen. And TV winners, they have killed whatever interaction there was. I remember as a child, all of us used to go our own ways. I would be in school, my siblings would be in college, my father would be at work. But dinner time was dinner time, and all of us sat together and we talked, and there was so much to talk about. Even if I were to describe my day and what went good and what went bad, that itself will take away so much of time. And you know each other's thoughts. That doesn't happen now.
Even if there is a get together or anything, everyone is on their phones. They don't even have, they are in the same room, but they are texting each other maybe.
Have you seen that photograph of celebrating grandma's birthday? and it's her 80th birthday, and she's surrounded by family, but each one of them is busy with the phone, and grandma is looking at the camera that, well, what's happening? Is it my birthday that they are here for? Well, they're not speaking with me.
Absolutely. This is how the world has become now. Like, technology is obviously important and it's helping us advancing, but somewhere or the other we can't ignore the personal things like communication and everything. We can't ignore that.
Sanjana, if you see the horse, if you will not saddle the horse, it will take you where it wants to. It will remain wild. If you're not going to saddle technology, then technology will saddle you.
Absolutely.
It's there to help you. It's not there to take over your life and to make you into some kind of a robot yourself. Passive. People are overweight. They are avoiding going outside. Homes are becoming more comfortable, and technology has taken over everything.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, with that, we come to an end of our meeting. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of EduTalk. And I think I have learned a lot from you, and I hope that our viewers will also learn a lot from this session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I hope so, really, Sanjana. Can I just conclude with one note to the parent? Let your child do what they want to make them happy. But in the long run, make sure that you have given them freedom along with responsibility. Create a little boundary for them. Be firm and be kind, but be there. Supervise them. Till they are 25 years old, they need supervision. Also, you cannot dictate to a child that, look, you've got to do what I say. You've got to make them understand why. And one last thing is, reward them when they do something good. Don't always look that your grades weren't good enough. When they are good, then speak. Don't say your room is so untidy. When the room is tidy, then speak. Appreciate. If they have not been eating vegetables today, they've taken a second serving of vegetables, then say, well done. So positive affirmations help. And being a hands-on parent is important. God bless you, Sanjana. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope I didn't take extra time from you, but this was
Not
very,
at all,
very
ma'am.
important.
It has been an amazing session. I am honored to take this, ma'am.
Thank you. It was
Thank
a
you so
privilege
much,
to talk
ma'am.
with you.